Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a Les Paul Studio from the year 2012, and this is the 70s tribute model. Now what that means is this guitar has some attributes of a 70s Les Paul. It's not an exact replica or anything, it's simply a tribute. Some of the tribute things are, this guitar originally came with mini humbuckers, which they did have in the 70s. They kind of have these reflector knobs that a lot of them did have. They have your Nashville-styled bridge, but I don't think that's so much as a shout-out as compared to just what Gibson does nowadays. One of the larger shout-outs here is the headstock is actually larger. Look at some of these late 70s standards and deluxe models as compared to like a 50s or a modern-day Gibson. The other thing is perhaps my favorite thing about this guitar is they did put the 70s volute on it. Now if you're not sure what a volute is, it's basically a little hump at the back of the neck. The original purpose of this is not for aesthetics, it's actually to strengthen the neck a little bit, because Gibsons tend to break right there. So this is a satin gold top finish. Now if you compare this one to like a reissue gold top, this actually looks more copper, but it's a gold top. If you don't like this satin finish, I know if you take it to like a professional polisher, you can buff this finish out to looking like just like a gloss top. An example of that is kind of right here. You can see how it's shinier here because of somebody's hand was probably playing right here. All the greases and oils just naturally polished that up over the years. Now this back, it's not black, it's almost kind of like a maroonish brown. I don't know, it's not the most attractive color, I don't think. And it's not very accurate towards a 70s Les Paul, because the majority of those had natural backs and natural finished necks. So I think this is just kind of an aesthetic thing that Gibson put on these to help them sell. Now I have nothing against budget line Gibsons. I actually really enjoy them. I think they play almost just as well as a standard or a custom. They're just not quite as blinged out. Unfortunately, I don't get to feature many studio models on my channel, mainly because it's just harder to deal in lower end used instruments. Because I like to try to pay fair prices, but when it comes to, you know, a lower end Gibson, their price values are more set compared to like a vintage collectible. So this one came to me in a 2-for-1 trade plus cash. The trader wanted less quantity of guitars and more quality. So he traded in his Les Paul Studio and his SG Special that I had featured on my channel quite a few weeks ago. So again, this would have originally came stock with mini humbuckers. The mini humbuckers have been removed as well as their base plates and these P90s installed. Now this bottom one is a Seymour Duncan, almost like a P100, like a stacked P90. And this one's just kind of a no-name P90. There were no real markings on it. I'm guessing it's just some cheapy GFS type thing. But it actually sounds really good for what it is. One thing I do want to point out is this cover is more of like a pale banana yellow color, whereas this one's the more traditional cream. It has a maple top with a satin gold finish over it, as well as a mahogany back and neck that has this dark finish over it. These have rosewood fretboards with trapezoid inlays, and there's no binding on the side. This one weighs 8 pounds, 7 ounces, and I would say it kind of has a full feeling neck. It's not quite the 70s slim. It's kind of in that medium, almost 59-like shape territory. So overall, this is kind of an interesting Les Paul Studio if you like 70s Les Pauls but can't necessarily afford them. So I would suggest checking one of these out. I am a huge fan of studio models. They're just not quite as pretty, but you don't have to be scared to modify these things. So definitely check one of these out if you see one. Now that we've learned a little bit about this guitar, let's go ahead and hear how she sounds. Our clean tones come from a Gibson Super Gold Tone GA30 RV. Our dirty tones come from a Marshall JMP 1C. Talking about the tone of the pickups, the middle position kind of has that quacky out of phase sound, and the neck pickup, I think it sounds really good clean, not so much distorted, but I think a better P90 or a stacked P90 would sound even better. The bridge, I do like the bridge. It's nice and fat and it's very attacking. Now that we know what this gold top sounds like, let's go ahead and go over its condition. If you're not interested in seeing the guitar's condition, that is the rest of the video, so we'll see you on another one. Alright, so here we are with the condition overview. This guitar, I wouldn't call it trashed, but it definitely has a lot of wear and tear that we need to go over here. I mean, you can see the headstock's fairly clean. It's got that satin vibe with the normal Gibson silkscreen logo with the Les Paul as well, but no like major scratches on the headstock to really speak of. Truss rod works just fine, and you have a Kluson Deluxe style tuner on this one. You have the original nut here, but you do have some stand rash on the sides. It's kind of hard to see, but it is there, especially on this side. You can see right there, and a small little ding right there. Now right here by the nut, there is kind of a line that looks suspicious like a crack. However, feeling it with my nail and looking at it, it doesn't feel like a crack. So what I'm guessing that actually is when somebody was hanging this up, it scratched it a little bit. But that is there, and I definitely want you to know about it. I'm not trying to hide it in the slightest. That is also on the side you'll see while you're playing, so if that's going to bug you, I would suggest passing on this example. You have a beautiful rosewood fretboard on this one. The frets are actually in pretty good shape. They do show some very light wear and tear. But what I really enjoy about this neck is, A, it doesn't have binding. I love the way binding looks, but I kind of hate how sometimes between the fret nibs they'll get a little gap. So it just feels so freeing to play an unbound neck. And what I like is you still have the appearance of binding because the rosewood is a significantly different brown color compared to that. So it still feels like a bound guitar, but it's not. Now the body, again, it's a satin gold top, kind of even a copper top really once you compare it. But you do have some wear and tear that will go over here. You can see some smudges as well as just some scratches from regular play wear. And you do have some arm wear chipping. If you look at it like a 50s Les Paul, there'll be green all in this area because that's where your arm rests. It gets kind of sweaty when you're playing, and that's just kind of how it happens. This one looks like a button on a jacket might have caught it or something. So you do have that little bit of aging right there. You've got a decent belly on this one. You can see the top carve. So that's kind of 70s like, even though they're not known for having the most deep dishes ever. Nice reflector knobs on this guy. And I mean, overall, the top's in pretty good shape. You've got some scratches in this area just from playing, but overall, I would say it's a fairly clean guitar once you look at it at the front. Guitar here, you can see somebody did install a pick guard at one point in time. It wasn't in the case when it came to me, so you'll have to find one if you would like one, but it is pre-drilled there as well as right here. I also want to make mention that P90s mount to the guitar through two screws kind of in the middle. There was no like modifications done to the routes. P90s fit in the same route as a mini humbucker. Now, when this guitar came to me, it had a mini humbucker in the neck and a P90 in the bridge. And I personally prefer the P90 look over the mini humbucker look, so I just went ahead and put another P90 in the neck because it just kind of completes the look instead of a mix-match guitar. Now, unfortunately, I only had 2 screws that were deep enough to actually be drilled into the wood, but I only had the 2 screws from this bridge pickup. So what I did is I took one from here and I used that to mount this one. Now, most P90s move around a little bit anyways. I mean, these are completely secure, they're not going to fall off, and honestly, even when you shake the guitar, they don't move unless you're kind of pressing on them. So if you want to find a screw that's long enough and sharp enough that you can complete the drilling in process, that is something that you could do, but it does function just fine as is, but just has 1 mounting screw for each pickup. All right, back of the headstock here, serial number 12272034-2, which makes this a 2012 model. You do have quite a bit of edge wear. You can see where the finish is worn through up here, as well as right there and kind of on the edges there. And just a few light scratches. And here's another area. Once again, I believe a stand probably did that, or it might have knocked against something real quick. And again, you do have this kind of suspicious line, but I don't feel any separation. It really does just look like a cosmetic scratch to me. The neck has some scratches, as you'll see. You have quite a few little areas of dings in the finish. I mean, these aren't really deep. You don't really even feel them, even when you're rubbing your finger against it, but it is kind of a cosmetic thing. If this was black, I probably would have touched these up as well, but if you could find like a dark brown touch-up marker, I think that would also look very good on this guitar. The back of the guitar has quite a bit of buckle wear and indentations. I mean, this definitely has a little bit of a road-worn vibe to it. You can see that area there where the finish was chipped through. Lots of buckle worming and more finish missing. I mean, it's not trashed by any means, but definitely well worn, especially on the edges, as we'll see here shortly. You can see in the cutaway area, nothing too major, but you do have a lot of wear on the edges here, especially where it rests against your leg. Have a plastic jack plate, which is more of a 50s attribute than a 70s. There's also a small ding right here. And this one was upgraded to Dunlop strap buttons. And sometimes what people will do is they'll scrape away the finish along the maple top to expose it, to kind of give it a faux binding appearance. That way it looks like a higher end Gibson than it really is. We'll take a look under blacklight here. Again, it's kind of a newer guitar, so you're not going to see a lot, but it does have some glowing to the finish. No, satin finishes don't usually glow as much either. So nothing really too much to show off on the top, except for that area of wear. Now here's the back of the headstock. You can see the neck glows a little bit, and what I'm guessing that really is that's just where the sweat of a player's hand has kind of made the finish age a little bit. Once again, you have these light finish nicks and dings, but they don't really impress into the neck so much that you'll actually notice them while playing. The back of the guitar does have some wear, but no real finish issues as far as touch-ups or repairs go. I believe these 70s tributes actually shipped with gig bags, so this is kind of an aftermarket hardshell case. It's not the best fitting case in the world, but it does the job. You have 1, 2, and 3 latches on the front and a single on the back, as well as a functioning handle. The interior is kind of a black color. There's some padding. I mean, it's not a terrible case by any means. You have some heel support as well. And you do have a little compartment lid. But you only have the single neck rest. So it's a case that'll do the job, but if you're going to do a lot of gigging, you might consider getting a Gibson branded case or a nice TKL or something. We'll test the fit here real quick. Up and down motion, not a lot. Side to side, almost none. And the headstock is up off the floor, so it does do its job. It just doesn't feel like a very strong case. If you think you might be interested in the 70s tribute Les Paul Studio Gold Top, feel free to contact me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Troglys, Trogloys. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.